I've been doing some research on a topic that's quite intriguing. I've been looking at genius and the art of creating something entirely revolutionary and entirely new that hasn't been created before. And that's what genius is. Now, there's a wonderful article that says, where are all the geniuses? Where have the geniuses gone? If you look at some of the examples of the past, we're looking at people like Einstein, like Newton. We go back, we can find all the great scientists, we can find the great artists and the great painters. And these people really sort of changed the game and changed the face of humanity in many ways. At this stage of our existence, we're creating a lot and we're building a lot on existing things that other revolutionaries that came before. But what we're not finding is this unique genius, this ability to be so disruptive and to think so creatively and to take an idea that is so far out reaching there and make it into reality. And so some of the researchers went to delve into that, and they said, well, why aren't there these geniuses? Why aren't there Beethovens and Bachs and Rachmaninoffs in the music industry? And where are the Leonardo da Vinci's? And where are the Einsteins? And where are these other creative geniuses that we saw that were so different? Nikola Tesla being a prime example as well. And a lot has to do, not the only thing, but a lot has to do with the education that we're getting right now. If you look at it, the education system is very much, and it's not criticism, it's only diagnosing and defining where the situation is. Where the problem lies is education has become sort of streamlined, and we're doing this sort of textbook conveyor belt system where everybody does the syllabus and the curriculum and goes through and passes maths and science and geography. Yet that type of conveyor belt education does not allow genius to arise, because genius is something entirely different. I'm going to talk more about that. And what they found is that most of these people from the past, these great thinkers and philosophers and painters and scientists, they had a different type of education, very much based on the aristocratic model of education, which was mentors and the student. And so the student would have the best of the best mentors that would come in and nourish and sort of enhance what the students' abilities were already. So instead of them coming in and say, look, this is what you need to be, and you can either become a doctor, a scientist, or an accountant, they're saying, well, what's your unique take on the world? And let's go more into that and let's explore. So very much customized education. And it wasn't just education, it was wisdom that was shared. It was a mentor-mentee type of relationship going at the same time, which led to the individual genius to flourish and to not be restricted, but to be allowed to express their unique offering to themselves and to the world. And the more out of the box they were, and the more peculiar and the more eccentric that they were, the more they were liked and encouraged. In fact, these types of people that were sort of anti-social, they didn't really fit into categories. They were, they had funny looking hair, and they didn't dress properly, and they didn't have much money, and they couldn't hold a job. Yet they had this ability to see the world in a unique way and see things in a unique way. And these people were sought after. And people used to ask them questions and say, what's your unique take on this? And they had this wonderful way of looking at the world, because they were sort of encouraged and they were spurred on to express their eccentricity, their unique peculiarities, and their unique way of seeing the world, which led to them developing this even further, and a confidence in knowing that however they choose to see the world is perfectly okay. What we're finding right now, from the education system to the university system and then to the workplace, it's very much conditioning. Very much, this is how things are. It's almost like the old Newtonian way versus the new sort of quantum Einsteinian view of the world, and the other people like Niels Bohr and Heisenberg, who thought very differently and took things really outside of what we knew about science and about motion and about movement and about particles. And so what we're finding right now is that we have this very much of a cut and paste type of mindset. And that type of mindset, and that type of education, and that type of thinking cannot lead to genius. It cannot lead to this creative surge that is so uniquely expressive about an individual. And it doesn't really matter if you send someone to Harvard or to Yale, all these big universities and all these private schools and institutions, they're not really educating, or they're not really harnessing the individual's approach to the world. And in fact, now with social media, everybody's basically saying the same things in a slightly different way, because even if you look at algorithms, they're designed to simply complement and to encourage and to amplify the voice that the people like. So you're not getting these obscure thinkers, these people that are doing these profound posts, getting any reach on the social media, because they don't conform to what everybody likes. So what ends up happening is we have these echo chambers. Echo chambers are, oh, I will click and like something that supports my worldview. And then so more of those people who are posting online, they get known. And so they get more popular. As a result, they're not going to, even if they could think outside the box and come up with something so creative and so different and so weird, ever go and express that, because they would be judged, and people won't click on them, and the algorithm will go, well, this is rubbish. So the algorithms, in a way, sort of support the status quo. And of course, as a result, genius will die. I mean, the ability to create uniquely and to see the world uniquely will die, because we're just inculcating everyone with the same patterns and the same way of thinking. And that's why people that do psychedelics, they get this profound awakening and this profound shift, is because those psychedelics or those plant medicines take them so far out of reach of what they conventionally understand and know to be true about existence. And through that realm, more creativity surges. And then you find people in deep states of meditation as well. They can access different states, alphas, they can access delta states and theta states, where they can delve deeper into awakening that creativity. Yet that type of thinking and that type of radical awareness or ideology is not encouraged. In fact, it's discouraged. And so what we find people being more and more compliant and more complacent, and we're just creating more and more echo chambers, which means we're creating the same level of thinking that's creating the same type of output. So as a result, it's a lot of the same coming in and a lot of the same going out. And from that, you really can't grow. You can't really be questioned. And because societies have become so sensitive, and I don't know where that came from, but everybody's walking on eggshells. Nobody's speaking their mind because the people will judge me. But so what if people judge you? And then you have the whole fear psychology that comes in as well, and say, well, if people judge me, then I won't get a job and I won't be able to feed my family. Therefore, I got to keep on towing the line and saying what I want. Even though we have this democracy where everybody's free to say whatever they want, people are not speaking their mind, because even under democracy, people have mortgages and they have families to feed, and they don't have time to entertain these notions of what is really going on in them. And for them to express it is too risky, and there's too much downside on it. If you look at the root word of scholar, a scholar comes from, I believe, the Greek word, don't quote me on this, but scholar, which is someone who is a free person, somebody who is able to go and do something without having to feel locked into something. So the scholar traditionally was someone that was not really academic. A scholar was somebody who was free. It came from the time of the aristocrats, when people had just enough money, or they had more than enough money, to do whatever they liked, and they decided to explore science or the arts or astronomy. And so they weren't driven by financial incentives to create or to research. It was very much driven by freedom. Say, let's just navigate and explore some of the craziest concepts, because my job doesn't depend on it and my livelihood doesn't depend on it. But when your entire life support depends on it, and you've got a choice between exploring something totally different, like a new take on quantum physics or a new take on art, versus maintaining the status quo and just giving people what they need in order to fulfill a grant requirement, or in order to pass an exam, or in order to get a degree or a bursary, we're not going to get these revolutionary papers and studies and things coming out of Science magazine or anywhere else like that. So then, in order to awaken genius, we have to decondition the mind. We have to declutter. We have to come out of conditioning. We have to come out of the education system. And those are the leaders of the future. These people can embrace an entirely different worldview, that they can see things in an entirely different way, and they're very self-aware of all their biases and all their conditioning. And once they ditch all of this, then they're living in a different realm and they're open to infinite possibilities. But when you come with that conditioned mind and the conditioned biases and the conditioned system, and being very afraid of everything that you're going to approach and do, then of course you're not going to be able to be successful.